That mask you wear every day? It was built in childhood to protect you, but it may be destroying you now. Not in some philosophical way, but literally. The person you think you are, the personality everyone knows you by, the way you show up in relationships, at work, in the world, it's a masterpiece of childhood engineering. A survival suit built by a scared kid who just wanted to make it through. And here is the thing that's going to mess with your head. This false self you've been perfecting for decades. It's so convincing that even you believe it's the real you. I'm about to show you something that changed my entire understanding of human behavior. Carl Jung called it the persona and the shadow. But I am going to show you how childhood trauma doesn't just influence these concepts, it weaponizes them. Today, we're going deep into the 12 shadow selves that trauma creates, why your brain built them, and most importantly, how to stage a revolution against the imposter living your life. But first, let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you did something that felt 100% authentically you? Not performing, not adapting, not managing someone else's emotions, just you, being you? If you can't remember, you're not alone. And you're exactly where you need to be. The architecture of false selves. Before we dive into the specific shadow selves, you need to understand how your brain became a master architect of fake personalities. Here's what happens. When you're a kid and your environment is unpredictable, threatening, or emotionally vacant, your developing brain makes a terrifying discovery. The real you isn't safe. Maybe the real you gets screamed at, ignored, punished, or abandoned. So your brilliant little brain does what any good engineer would do. It designs a better version. This isn't conscious. You're not sitting there at age 6 going, I think I'll create a false personality today. No, this happens in your nervous system, in your limbic brain, in the parts of you that are just trying to survive. The problem is, these survival personalities are so effective that they take over your entire identity. You start believing that the mask is the face. The role becomes your reality. Jung understood this when he talked about the persona, the mask we wear in social situations. But he also talked about the shadow, all the parts of ourselves we've rejected, hidden, or forgotten about. What Jung didn't fully explore is how childhood trauma doesn't just create personas and shadows. It creates what I call trauma twins. Every survival personality you developed has a shadow twin, the authentic part of you that got buried to keep that personality alive. The people pleaser's shadow twin is the person with strong boundaries. The overachiever's shadow twin is the person who's enough just as they are. The revolution isn't about destroying your personas. They kept you alive. It's about recognizing them as tools you can pick up and put down, rather than identities that control your life. Let's meet your shadow selves. The emotional hostage. This might be the most invisible shadow self because it doesn't look like trauma. It looks like caring. You know you reliving as the emotional hostage when other people's feelings have more power over your day than your own. You wake up fine, but then your partner seems distant, so now you're anxious. Your friend posts something cryptic on social media, and you spend 2 hours analyzing what you might have done wrong. You've become emotionally porous. Everyone else's energy bleeds into your system and changes your internal weather. You can't be happy if someone in your orbit is unhappy. You can't relax if you sense tension anywhere around you. Here's what's really happening. Your nervous system never learned to distinguish between your emotions and other people's emotions. In childhood, your survival depended on reading and managing the emotional states of the adults around you. If mom was depressed, the whole house felt dangerous. If dad was angry, everyone had to walk on eggshells. So you developed emotional radar that's so sensitive it picks up signals from 3 rooms away. You became an emotional detective, constantly scanning for threats in other people's moods. The shadow twin of the emotional hostage is what I call the sovereign self, the part of you that can feel compassion for others without drowning in their emotions, the part that knows where you end and other people begin. Breaking free. Start each morning by checking in with your baseline emotional state before you interact with anyone else. Practice the phrase, "That's their journey, not mine," when you feel yourself getting pulled into someone else's emotional vortex. Most importantly, your inner child needs to hear this. Other people's emotions are information about them, not instructions for you. The success addict is probably the most socially rewarded shadow self, which makes it incredibly hard to recognize as a problem. You know you reliving as the success addict when your self-worth rises and falls with your achievements like a stock market ticker. Good performance review? You're a valuable human being. Project gets criticized? You're worthless. Promotion? You matter. Setback? You're a failure. You've become addicted to the dopamine hit of external validation. But here's the cruel irony. No amount of success ever feels like enough because you're trying to fill an internal void with external accomplishments. It's like trying to quench thirst with salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. The success addict usually develops in families where love was conditional on performance. Maybe your parents only showed pride when you brought home good grades. Maybe attention only came when you won awards or achieved something noteworthy. Perhaps failure was met with disappointment that felt like abandonment. Your child brain made a logical conclusion. I am only valuable when I am achieving. So you built an entire identity around proving your worth through accomplishment. But here's what that scared kid couldn't understand. You were trying to earn something that should have been freely given. You were working to deserve what you already deserved just for being born. The shadow twin of the success addict is the inherently worthy self, the part of you that knows you're valuable just for existing, not for what you produce. Breaking free. Practice doing things badly on purpose. Take a class where you're a beginner. Let people see you struggle. Your nervous system needs to learn that you can be imperfect and still be loved. The invisible martyr is the shadow self that sacrifices everything for everyone, while keeping a secret scorecard of all the ways they've been overlooked and underappreciated. You know you're living as the invisible martyr when you constantly give more than you receive, but you're quietly resentful about it. You say yes to everything, help everyone, show up for everyone, and then feel bitter when no one seems to notice or reciprocate. You've convinced yourself that your value comes from how much you can sacrifice for others. But underneath all that giving is a desperate hope that someone will finally see how much you do and give back to you with the same intensity. The invisible martyr often develops in families where children had to earn love through service. Maybe you had a parent who was overwhelmed, and being helpful was the only way to get positive attention. Maybe your needs were seen as selfish, so you learned to only express yourself through meeting other people's needs. You became the family hero, the one everyone could count on, the one who never asked for anything. But you were a child, you needed things too. That unmet need didn't disappear. It went underground and became the engine driving your adult martyrdom. Here's the shadow twin, the reciprocal self, the part of you that can give from abundance rather than emptiness, and receive with grace rather than guilt. Breaking free. Start asking for small things directly instead of hoping people will guess what you need. Practice saying, "I need help with this," instead of doing everything yourself and then feeling resentful. Your inner child needs to learn that asking for help isn't selfish. It's human. The Chaos Conductor. This might be the most misunderstood shadow self because it looks like the opposite of trauma recovery. It looks like being dramatic, unstable, or attention-seeking. You know you're reliving as the Chaos Conductor when your life feels like a never-ending series of crises, conflicts, and dramatic situations. But here's the thing, you're not consciously creating this chaos. Your nervous system is. If you grew up in unpredictability, your brain learned that chaos is normal and calm is suspicious. Peace doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like the eerie quiet before a storm. So your unconscious mind creates familiar drama to bring your stress levels back to what feels normal. You might find yourself attracted to complicated relationships, high-stress jobs, or situations where you're constantly putting out fires. You might unconsciously pick fights when things are going too well, or create problems that need solving. The Chaos Conductor develops when children grow up in environments where crisis was the only time they got attention, care, or felt important. Maybe your parents only came together during emergencies. Maybe you only felt needed when everything was falling apart. Your child brain concluded, chaos equals connection, drama equals love, crisis equals mattering. The shadow twin is the peacekeeper, not the people-pleasing kind, but the part of you that can create and maintain genuine calm without anxiety. Breaking free. When life feels too peaceful, notice the urge to create drama and pause. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if everything stays okay? Practice tolerating good feelings and stable situations without sabotaging them. The fortress keeper is the shadow self that has built walls so high and thick that even you can't remember what's behind them. You know you're living as the fortress keeper when you pride yourself on not needing anyone, never being vulnerable, and solving everything yourself. People describe you as strong, independent, unshakable, and you wear these descriptions like armor. But inside the fortress, there's often a scared child who learned that needing people was dangerous. Maybe your caregivers were inconsistent, unavailable, or actually harmful. Maybe showing vulnerability was met with criticism, rejection, or worse. So you built walls, thick ones. And you've been living inside them for so long that you've forgotten that walls don't just keep danger out, they also keep love out. The fortress keeper thinks independence means never needing anyone for anything. But healthy independence actually requires interdependence, the ability to be strong and to receive support, to be capable and to accept help. The shadow twin is the connected self, the part of you that knows you can be self-sufficient and still allow people in. Breaking free. Practice letting people help you with small things. Let someone carry your groceries, buy you coffee, or listen to you complain about your day without trying to fix it. Your nervous system needs to learn that depending on safe people isn't dangerous. It's human. The mirror chameleon is possibly the most exhausting shadow self to live as because you constantly shape-shifting to match what you think other people want from you. You know you're living as the mirror chameleon when you become a different person in different contexts. Your personality, opinions, interests, even your sense of humor changes depending on who you're around. You've become so good at reading rooms and adapting that you've lost touch with who you are when no one is watching. This usually develops in families where authenticity was dangerous or unwelcome. Maybe you had volatile parents who required different versions of you depending on their mood. Maybe your real personality was criticized, mocked, or ignored. Children are natural adapters. It's a survival mechanism. But when adaptation becomes your primary mode of being, you lose track of your core self. The shadow twin is the authentic self, not the be yourself platitude version, but the part of you that has consistent values, preferences, and reactions regardless of who's in the room. Breaking free. Start by identifying your non-negotiable values, the things that remain true for you no matter what. Practice expressing one authentic opinion per day, even if it's unpopular. The time hostage lives in a state of perpetual urgency about everything, even things that don't matter. You know you're reliving as the time hostage when you rush through life like you constantly, late for an important appointment that doesn't exist. You walk fast for no reason, treat minor tasks like emergencies, and feel anxious when things move at a normal pace. This often develops in chaotic households where you had to be hyper-vigilant about timing. Maybe you learned that being 2 minutes late could trigger an explosive reaction. Maybe you had to be ready to manage a crisis at any moment. The shadow twin is the present self, the part of you that can move through life at a sustainable pace. Breaking free. Practice doing one thing slowly each day. Walk to your mailbox at half your normal speed. Eat a meal without multitasking. The emotional detective is constantly analyzing, interpreting, and trying to solve other people's emotional states. You know you're reliving as the emotional detective when you spend more mental energy figuring out what everyone else is feeling than you spend on your own emotions. You notice micro-expressions, analyze tone of voice, and create elaborate theories about what people really mean. This develops when children had to become experts at reading adult emotions to stay safe. The shadow twin is the emotionally sovereign self, the part of you that can notice other people as emotions without feeling responsible for managing them. Breaking free. When you catch yourself analyzing someone else's mood, redirect that detective energy toward your own internal state. The perfection prison guard believes that anything less than perfect is dangerous. You know you're reliving as the perfection prison guard when you can't start projects because you might not do them perfectly. You can't finish things because they're never good enough, and you live in constant anxiety about making mistakes. This often develops in families where mistakes had serious consequences, emotional, physical, or relational. The shadow twin is the good enough self, the part of you that knows that done is better than perfect. Breaking free. Practice the 80% rule. Do things to 80% of your standard and then stop. Your nervous system needs to learn that imperfect is still valuable. The safety scanner is constantly assessing and preparing for threats that probably won't materialize. You live in a state of what if, constantly running worst-case scenarios and trying to prepare for every possible negative outcome. The shadow twin is the trust self, the part of you that can take reasonable precautions without living in constant fear. Breaking free. Practice the phrase, I'll handle whatever comes up when it comes up, and notice the anxiety this creates. The giving machine operates from a core belief that your value comes from what you can do for other people. The shadow twin is the receiving self, the part of you that can accept gifts, help, and love without feeling guilty or indebted. The emotional vampire needs intense emotional experiences to feel alive, because your baseline emotional state feels empty or numb. The shadow twin is the internally sourced self, the part of you that can generate your own sense of aliveness without needing external drama. The revolution begins. Here's the truth that changes everything. These shadow selves aren't your enemies. They're not flaws to be fixed or weaknesses to be overcome. They incredibly sophisticated survival strategies created by a child who was doing their absolute best to navigate an impossible situation. The revolution isn't about destroying these parts of yourself. It is about recognizing them as tools in your toolkit rather than your entire identity. It's about giving yourself permission to be all of who you are, including the parts you've been hiding in the shadows. Your authentic self isn't one thing. It's the integration of all your parts, the shadow and the light, the survival strategies and the spontaneous joy, the protective mechanisms and the vulnerable truth. The person you really are has been waiting patiently for you to come home. The revolution starts the moment you remember. You are not your trauma responses. You are the sky, and everything else is just weather. Welcome to your revolution.